Welcome back to the Assembly Hall for another episode of Notes from School, the podcast. So settle down. We have got a very exciting assembly today because coming into school today we have another guest speaker. So last week, if you missed episode 5, I had a great chat with Rachel Staunton from London Youth Choir. We had a really nice conversation about building confidence in young singers and how that can actually be taken through you to adult years, especially if you've been told you can't sing. I posted a little clip of our chat online. It has some interesting comments as well. So I had a comment from someone on Instagram. Zoe from Singing Mamas said, "I'm a music teacher and I've never said that to a child in 30 years, referring to you can't sing. It's awfully damaging when music teachers do say this. No PE teacher says to a child, you can't kick a football. They just get on and teach them." And then someone commented on her comment saying, "My PE teacher told me I'd do better running backwards in long jump. I hated PE." Now, we're not going to get into PE trauma right now. I know it is Notes from School, but it's a music-themed podcast. Maybe I'll get Joe Wicks on one day and we can do a chat about PE. But working through the childhood experiences of PE and having to put on somebody else's forgotten PE shorts if you left yours at home. We're not going to get into having to run around the school hall with not many clothes on if you forgot your kit, or the long trudges in the pouring rain for cross country. That can be another podcast. All about traumatic memories of PE lessons. But this is a music-themed podcast. And yes, the last week's chat was really great with Rachel, and it was good to hear all about her work with London Youth Choir and all the things that she's doing across all the different boroughs of London, getting people into singing regardless of background. And this week, we're going to take one more step along the world, see what I did there, of your life. And we've got a guest speaker coming into the Assembly Hall today. And it's Ella Reiter from Bright Yellow Coaching. And she is going to talk to us about how we can use music in our kind of professional lives. Maybe as adults, I assume most people listening to this will be adults. And how she uses music in her coaching to get the best out of people in a business setting or a professional setting. But first of all, before we get into the chat, which is great, coming up later on, I am just going to have a little catch up for the week. Hope everyone's had an amazing week. I've had a couple of gigs, and I just want to do a couple of quick shout outs because I had a gig in Leicester at the Little Theatre, which, even though it's called Little, was about 300-ish capacity, I think. I know that, I think if a venue's called a Little Theatre, it's not specifically little. I think it's a slightly arcane way of saying it's part of a group of theatres that aren't commercially owned. And then the other venue I played was Luton on Saturday at the Library Theatre there. And both of these venues are completely volunteer run. And I just want to do a massive shout out to grassroots venues or volunteer run theatres that are out there doing amazing things, because I think so many of us take for granted let's say maybe smaller venues in our towns and cities that are run from the passion of love for theatre or live music. And a lot of these venues have disappeared over the years. So growing up in Poole, we used to have a number of music venues, for example, and most of them shut down apart from the big one, which used to be the Poole Arts Centre, is now the Lighthouse. And I just really want to do a huge shout out for anyone that works in these theatres. I was talking to the owner of Luton Library Theatre, for example, and he was saying that in 2023 the council wanted to shut down the building. And then him and a collection of other people that had performed at the theatre over the years had come together and formed a community interest company, I think it's called CIC. They bought the theatre and it's completely volunteer run now. And I think they just do an amazing job. So huge shout out to any volunteer run theatres around the country or music venues and all the grassroots venues, because if we don't have these theatre or these venues, then so many people can't get their name out there. They can't work their way up through the business. And I think we're living in a time now where people are actually willing to pay quite a lot of money to go and see a show. So whether it be a panto at the Palladium or going to see Beyonce and Taylor Swift or really big name artists, people are willing to pay a fair bit of money for big name artists and big venues. And obviously these shows come with big production values, but they don't necessarily trickle down into the local economies in a way that people going to see a local theatre might do. So what I would say, first of all, is if you have a local theatre or music venue that you love, please send me a message, send me an email at notesfromschoolpodcast@gmail.com or message me on Instagram. And I'd love to know about your local theatre. And next week, I want to do some shout outs for the local theatres or venues that you love that need a bit more, maybe a bit more love and a bit more appreciation. And second of all, I kind of feel like we need these venues for new artists to come through. So you can't have an Ed Sheeran without having the smaller venues that he would have played at. I mean, obviously, a lot of artists come into the business on a higher level through shows like Britain's Got Talent or The X Factor or things like that. But that shouldn't be the only route in. We should have these amazing routes where you can perform at local theatres, local art centres, local music venues, pubs. And if we don't have that, then the music industry is going to only really be for a certain elite of people. Anyway, I won't get too far into this week because it's a really interesting chat that we can have. But just again, massive shout out to Leicester Little Theatre and Luton Library Theatre. And I've got some great gigs coming up this week. So today I am going to be in Cambridge, my university town. I'll be back to a venue that I used to go to quite a lot when I was at uni, going to gigs, which is The Junction. I'm playing at J2 in The Junction, which is the second biggest room. And that should be, I'm really excited for that. It should be really great. So that's Wednesday this week. I'm in Cambridge. And then Friday, I'm in Henley at the Kenton Theatre. Saturday, 1st of March, I'm in Cranley, from Henley to Cranley, at the Arts Centre there. And Sunday, I'm back to Butlins and Bognor. So I'm going to be doing an 80s weekender at Bognor Regis. So 4 gigs this week. So hopefully see you at one of them. And if you have come to one of my gigs so far this year, thank you so much. Now, that's just a little catch up and a little chat about grassroots music venues and theatres. And I want to do a quick question and answer this week because we didn't do so much of it last week. And in the question and answer today, I do actually have one song request in there. It's a bit of an obscure one. But the first question is, hi, did you do all your piano grades from 1 to 8? I still play pieces from my piano grades 40 years later. Okay, so did I do all my piano grades? And the answer is yes, I did. I did all my piano grades. I'm a nerd. Yes, I did all of them. But I think it was a really good. Actually, piano is a great instrument to do all the grades in. You can skip grades in some instruments, and especially with singing as well. If you start at a slightly older age, you don't necessarily have to do grade 1. But I feel like grade 1 piano is actually quite hard. Grade 1, grade 2 piano can be really hard. So once you get into the grades, then it's a little bit easier to work your way through. But going from complete beginner to grade 1 takes a long time. So I would say don't rush it. One thing that I would suggest that you can skip grades in is music theory. So music theory is essentially what you'll actually hear me talking a bit about music theory later in the episode, but it's essentially learning about the notes. It's about learning about the construction of music and how it all comes together, and being able to pick up a piece of music, analyze it, be able to read the music, know what all the names of the notes are, the rhythms, the pitches, the intervals, which are the gaps between notes, and all the Italian, slightly archaic meanings of the words like allegro, andante, etc. So that's what music theory is. Most people I know just went in at grade 5, which is the grade that you need to move on to higher grades in your instruments, especially if you're studying with ABRSM, which is the music exam board. But I would actually say for anyone that is interested in music, maybe take a look at music theory because it can really unlock a lot of knowledge about how music is put together. Now, that's question 1. Very, very kind of music-themed question. I like it. Now, more into a performing question. This is from Annabelle Lucy, 88. Would you consider asking for family and friends and relatives doing smaller gigs in more rural locations for people who may be older or unable to get to larger venues. Cool. Yeah, I mean, this kind of links on a little bit to what I was talking about just now with the smaller grassroots venues. I mean, I have tried in the past, well, since I started doing my Assembly Bangers shows, which was about this time 2 years ago, end of February, beginning of March 2023. I've tried to get around as many places as I can. I don't just stick to the cities. Even this week, for example, you know, I am playing Cambridge, but I'm doing like Henley and Cranley and Bognor and I do try and I know those are all south based, but I have tried to get around as many places as I can. And every show that I've done up until this summer has been completely organised by myself, as well as doing all my teachings. It's quite hard to necessarily get to every single place. But for the Christmas tour that I'm doing this year, I am actually working with a tour booker who is... he's basically helping me organise that tour for Christmas and getting me into much bigger venues, which is really exciting. But in terms of doing kind of family-based shows, I am doing a one-day thing, which is kind of like for families and children as well, which is called Concertinis at the end of March in Sheffield. And if that goes well, then I might see if I can do that slightly more, do sort of more family-based shows. Now, the final thing that I'm going to do in this section before we get into the chat is a little obscure song request that I had called, well, the request was, one of my favourite school hymns was, I have seen the golden sunshine, I have watched the flowers grow. Not many people seem to know it. I'd love it if you could do a video on this one, brackets, presuming you know it. This is from Ruby Reflects. I have dug into my songbook stash that I have. I've got a spiral-bound book here called Someone's Singing Lord. Hymns and Songs for Children. Now, on the front cover, we have, it's a yellow book with flowers, poppies, and little field mice, I think, climbing over the bits of corn. It's very wholesome. And I dived into the contents page of this book, and we have such songs as Morning Has Broken. We have Milk Bottle Tops and Paper Bags, if you know that one. Think of a World Without Any Flowers. That's a very sad one. A little known tune that you might sing around the campfire called Kumbaya. Loads more songs. If I Had a Hammer, I Danced in the Morning, which I'm guessing is Lord of the Dance. Now, number 6 in this book is this song that you've requested called I Have Seen the Golden Sunshine. Again, this is actually not a song that I know that well, but if you do know this song, I want you to sing along. Here's the intro. Okay, here we go. So, Ruby Reflects, I hope you're singing along. It goes like this. I have seen the golden sunshine, I have watched the flowers grow, I have listened to the songbirds, and there's one thing that I know, they were all put there for us to share by someone so divine. And if you're a friend of Jesus, there's some claps in here, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're a friend of mine. Okay, here's the chorus. I've seen the light, I've seen the light, and that's why my heart sings. I've known the joy, I've known the joy that loving Jesus brings. There we go. That's I have seen the golden sunshine, complete with my cats fighting in the background. So let me know if you have any other obscure song requests from these spiral-bound books that a lot of us sang from. I'm going to dive into another song later on in the episode, because at the end of the assembly each week, we do have a bit of a sing-along. And this week, we're going to be singing one from our younger years called I Can Sing a Rainbow, because that gave a lot of very young singers a little bit of confidence to sing. Now, it's time to welcome in to the Assembly Hall this week, our guest speaker. We're going to welcome in Ella Reiter, and she is she has spent 10 plus years consulting for FTSE 250 companies, working with leaders to reshape organizational cultures, align business strategy with purpose, and drive behavioral change at scale. Okay, so Ella is a qualified transformational coach, and she has a company called Bright Yellow. We're going to have a really interesting chat about self-confidence, leading on from last week's chat with Rachel Staunton from London Youth Choir. and how music can transform your performance in business, in your professional life, wherever you teach, whatever you do, or just or also in your personal life as well. So this is a slightly longer chat, and I really hope you can crack out a cup of tea or a coffee or whatever you're doing. Have a listen to this chat. I urge you to listen to the whole thing because it's really great. And I'll see you on the other side of the guest speaker. So welcoming into the Assembly Hall, we have Ella Reiter from Bright Yellow. Welcome to the Assembly Hall, Ella Reiter.
Woohoo!
Hey, big round of applause from everybody. Welcome, Ella. Ella is the founder and CEO of the company Bright Yellow. And we have been talking about self-confidence on the podcast, on the Notes from School podcast, and talking about how having self-confidence in your life and in music can just improve things in so many ways. And you are a coach and have a lot of experience. I've given you a whole preamble, by the way, so I've bigged you up. I've hyped you up.
Thanks, James.
But in a nutshell, in your own words, can you tell me about your company, Bright Yellow, and what you do?
Yeah, thank you very much. What a great intro already. So yes, I'm a coach and I'm a consultant. And through Bright Yellow, what I do is I help people and companies to amplify their impact at work, right? So how can they do more with what they've already got? And specifically focusing on building people up, right? So it's from an individual level, helping people understand what they're good at and how can they use those strengths to kind of feel brilliant and be brilliant at work.
I love it. Now, so this is a podcast about music, and I wondered whether you could tell me a bit about how music plays a role in the work that you do at Bright Yellow with the coaching.
Yeah, awesome. So look, I think all of us can relate to having a moment at work where you're just absolutely shattered and I've got nothing left. Or something's really
definitely.
Yeah, all of my teacher pals, your heroes, congratulations. And look, I love finding things that I'm all about impact, right? Amplify the impact. How can you do really great things with something really small? And music is, it pulls on emotions and memory and makes us feel great. And, most songs are 3 minutes long, pop songs at least. And so it's such a quick way that I can really help my clients to feel better and switch that mindset. You can listen to a song and suddenly in 3 minutes, you're a different person. So I love it and I use it all the time.
That's amazing. Now, we were kind of talking about, just before we started recording this, we just had a little catch up, and we were talking about music, and the thing with music is that people quite often use music as part of their day. They might wake up to a certain playlist or a soundtrack, and people can use music in lots of different ways to alter their mood. And obviously, if you are going to work or going to school, if you're a teacher, or even growing up, you would have a routine. And you were saying about an idea of rituals and how you can use a ritual of using a specific song or music in the workplace. And I wondered if you could kind of dive a bit more into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Both, I think, from an individual point of view and teams. We see, particularly in the world of sports, for example, so many teams use music as part of their ritual to get ready in preparation. From an anthropological and cultural point of view, human beings, we've used rituals for, centuries. And what's so powerful about them is they kind of do the work for you, right? So you spoke just then in the kind of intro to the question around getting ready for your day in the morning, if you're a teacher kind of getting to work. It's a way in which we can combine kind of our mindset, our behavior, and our environment to then make ourselves feel great as we're doing something. So I know, okay, if I'm listening to this song, that means it's like getting home from work time, put this track on, feeling really great. Or it could be, I know at the moment, walking to work. And, I want to make sure I feel good. So I have a ritual of putting that song on. And then on my way to work, that means, okay, now I'm getting in the right headspace.
So it's an interesting mix of the difference between routine and ritual, because I feel like the ritual might feed into a routine. And I know that when I do my live shows of the Primary School Bangers show live, I kind of want to get myself into the kind of the positive headspace. And I've over the years, as I talked about in last week's episode of the podcast, I used to not have very much self-confidence at all in lots of ways, in lots of aspects of my life, including performing, which sounds ironic as a musician that you actually find it very scary to go on stage. But after having developed a bit more self-confidence, having just gone out there and got up on a stage and done as many different gigs in front of as many different kinds of people as I can, I've kind of almost developed a bit of a ritual for myself. Before I go on stage, I like to get myself into the mindset of performance.
What do you do?
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of slightly strange rituals in a way. One of them, I mean, it's not that strange in a way, but I quite like to clean my teeth before going on stage, even if I would have cleaned my teeth anyway during the day, but after, you might have had a coffee or you might have eaten some food, and it just makes you feel fresh and it makes you feel like you're kind of resetting a little bit. But another ritual is, I mean, it's not that strange really, most people probably do it, is actually having a bit of a hype song or a hype playlist to kind of get you into the mindset. And so I actually made a playlist which I put on in the auditorium. Wherever I'm performing, I say, oh, can you play this playlist? Because I've specifically made it and curated it to get people in the mood and the mindset. And I've called it my primary school disco bangers pre-show playlist or something like that. And very catchy title. And it's full of, the songs that we'd listen to at the school disco, like, I don't know, Boyzone and Blue and Atomic Kitten and all these absolute bangers from the late 90s, early noughties. And I quite like to play it into the house as people are coming in. Because also for them as well as for me, for the audience and for me as a performer, I quite like all of us to kind of go somewhere in our mind that isn't what we've experienced during the day. So you might have had the worst day ever, but as soon as you step through those doors, I want you to kind of get into that mindset of, oh, I'm going back in time a little bit to a place that is more kind of carefree, uplifting. And it just so happens that most of these songs are quite upbeat as well. So I was wondering if you use kind of the idea of hype songs and rituals in your work as well.
Oh my God, so much. I love it. I'm like, as you're saying, I'm nodding and smiling. I'm like, yes, James. Who doesn't?
Doing the step
I was, and I was feeling like, when am I going to get the key change? And then we can just, stand off the stool. Look, I think what I love most about that, James, is how intentional it is, right? So you're really going, whoever, and it's cool because it's kind of not like control and manipulation in a bad way, but in a way which is, people can be in whatever headspace they are before they get to those front doors of wherever you're performing. And then suddenly if they start to hear these songs, you're starting to change and you're priming people, right, to be ready for the experience of your show. And that is exactly what I do with clients, with individuals or with people, with companies, right, which is, helping people understand that music can be a tool. It can really be a tool for behavior change. And you can really intentionally help yourself or help other people get into the headspace that you want them to get in, particularly if I've got a leader that is doing a lot of speaking engagements, and like you're saying, someone that spends a lot of time performing that really gets nervous and doesn't have the confidence to perform, many people who are exceptional speakers actually are quite terrified. So having a very specific hype song is one thing that I do and I work on with clients, which is we really tweak and work out what's the song, what's the lyrics to get them in that right headspace. Or like a soundtrack for success. Athletes in particular are really known for having soundtracks that really get them into the right headspace, whether that's, Michael Phelps listening to Eminem before, Athens in 2004. My favorite actually is Louis Smith, the British gymnast. He has a playlist called Reggae Sexin'. Apparently,
okay,
because he's like, to be a gymnast rather than a sprinter, you need to be like relaxed and chill. So he puts all his reggae tunes on. But even like, I don't know, this week, for example, I've been doing a lot of research around sports, and I'm running a workshop in a couple of weeks with some friends of mine in a sports community. And so I'm looking into soundtracks that athletes use, and I've been adding it into my own playlist and preparing myself. And honestly, like I've shaved off like 10 minutes from my walking commute into town because I'm walking and I'm like, yeah. I mean, I am a champion, right? Like,
and if you get the right beat, your whole posture will change and your entire countenance will completely change. Like, you'll probably walk taller, you'll walk with more purpose, and it's really interesting. And I actually found that quite interesting about Louis Smith having a reggae song, and how the different kind of beats per minute in the bar, and how that can change the different mindset depending on what you need it for. I've used music to calm myself down as well as kind of hype myself up. So I listen to a lot of classical music, or an act like the King Singers, or someone who have kind of vocal music that will maybe transport you away. If there's a moment that I felt quite anxious or full of panic, then I'll use that music to kind of take me away from that, as well as using hype music to kind of get me pumped as well. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah. What was it that, I mean, there's loads of things now around also kind of the psychology around, so for example, women giving birth, an incredibly stressful situation, and actually how using music can help calm down and regulate. And that's what I think, and we started having a conversation about a couple of weeks ago, because we know the emotional side of music, and there's lots of great books that have been written around kind of the memories that music can bring us, and nostalgia, where you kind of thrive. But actually the specific kind of science of the music itself, I came across a couple of weeks ago a new James Bay song that I absolutely loved, called Sunshine in the Room. And I remember I listened to it and I was like, oh God, I feel great. But I didn't know the song, I didn't know the music. And I was like, James, help me out. Like, why does this song make me feel great?
This is actually how this whole thing started, because for those of you that are not aware of this song, you might know James Bay from Hold Back the River, which is quite I would say a slightly more chilled song, a bit not downbeat necessarily, but it's a bit more relaxed. But he released a new tune called, what was it, Sunshine in the Room. In the Room, okay. And then so I had a message from Ella saying about what you do with your work with music and coaching, and asked me why this song makes her feel so upbeat. And I thought that's quite interesting, as someone that has studied music and obviously performs music a lot. It's interesting come to think about the psychology behind the music itself, and why is it not just about the lyrics, because you might have a song with quite uplifting lyrics, but what is it about the actual the music itself? Why does that make me feel good? And immediately I was getting ideas about the influences of the music. So to me, it sounded like it could have been a Stevie Wonder track from the 70s, and that immediately puts you in the headspace of, oh, I love Stevie Wonder, and listening to his music puts me in a good mood, because it makes me think of maybe I was at a wedding where there was a wedding band playing Superstition or something, or it makes me think of growing up. My dad used to play me Stevie Wonder tracks or soul music and Motown, so it's got that kind of soul, Motown, Stevie Wonder kind of vibe. So that immediately is giving you connotations of positivity. And then on a slightly more geeky musical level, if we've got any music.
Oh, you're going to play it? Yes, James, let's do it.
I actually kind of went into it and thought, okay, all right, I'm going to play a little bit of this. So first of all, it's in a major key. And if you remember from your lessons at school, you've got major keys and minor keys. The major ones sound happier. The minor ones generally sound sad. That is a complete generalization, but that's generally what it is. So it's in F major, so it feels very happy. First of all, you get these kind of chords. So those chords are, it doesn't actually reach the main key, which is F major. So if it starts off like this, and if it went to here, it'd feel kind of final. It'd feel final, and it'd feel like that was a bit of closure, but it doesn't quite get to that key, the F major key. It doesn't quite resolve quite yet, but it does when we get to the chorus. And then when we get to the chorus, we get these kind of gospel-inspired chords. So we have... And then we finish that chorus on the F major chord, so it resolves. So we feel like we kind of get taken on a journey from a major key, and we add a bit of a minor chord in there, and then we have this gospel turnaround where we go to, this is getting very nerdy now, but chord 5, which is called the dominant chord, because that is the main chord that then resolves back to the tonic, which is chord 1. There we go. So in a very, very...
Music theory lesson. I love it.
Bit of music theory. So we had all of those things, but also the tempo is upbeat. We've got hand claps in there. We've got lots of backing vocalists of like a I don't know, it's almost like a choir singing in the background and people.
Like you want to join in, like when you hear it, like da da da
Yeah.
da. As
And
you
I
see, I've
think,
got a big smile on my face.
yeah, you've already got a big smile just talking about it. And the one of the other things is it sounds organic as well, because obviously there are a lot of very upbeat songs that are kind of club tracks which have beats and electronic elements, but this has got all those kind of organic musical aspects where it's obviously recorded electronically, but it's got piano, acoustic pianos, it's got guitars, it's got hand claps, it's got all the things that make you feel like it's very human and you're kind of connecting to the music. So there we go. That's a little music kind of behind the music psychology deep dive into why a piece of music might make you feel good, and that's a brand new track. That's a track. I mean, this sounds like an advert for James Bay now, which
we should we should get hold of James Bay, if someone who knows someone.
I think
we're a huge fan.
I mean, you can use that kind of analysis on any song, really. But it's in what I found really interesting about your question is why a brand new song that you've never heard, no one in the world has heard this song before last week. Why did that song immediately make you feel good, and why did you immediately connect with that song? So that's what I found quite interesting. And then that's when I then started thinking about all those organic elements that you can relate to and connect to. So those are the reasons why you may feel positive and build that can maybe build up your self-confidence and make you walk taller when you're going down the street.
Completely. And I think that, one of the things that's quite fun about it is there are lots of different ways things will work differently for different people, right? So there's both the sciencey neuroscience element of it, which is, okay, if I just want to improve my energy or feel something different, what kind of tracks can I look for? But equally, it's important for everyone. Like if we're talking about confidence at work, right, that's going to mean different things for different people.
Yeah.
So actually, there'll be sometimes when I'm like, I just need to pretend I'm Elphaba on stage in Wicked, and I'm, powering along.
We all do that sometimes.
And other times it's going to be, I don't know, Eminem, right? And I just need to, I've got this, and like till I collapse and keep going. I don't know. It's totally personal. Confidence is something that's so personal to everyone.
This might sound like a bit of an obvious question, but why is it important to have self-confidence in business?
The main reason why I do what I do and why it's so important to think about self-confidence in businesses, because if we're in a good mindset, right, if we're feeling confident, if we're positive, it totally changes our psychology around how we see things like risk and opportunity. So as a person, if I am more confident, I am more likely to see many more different ways to solve a problem, like compared to a negative mindset where it actually is going to close off the options that I even see. Daniel Kahneman, who's a world-renowned psychologist, did a lot of research around this idea of positivity is helping you be open-minded and more creative, and negativity is closing off options. And it's all to do with how you see risk. In the workplace, particularly, you want to be taking, sometimes to grow and progress, you want to take some risks. So if I'm positive, I'm going to see that risk as what could I gain from taking the risk? If I'm not confident, all I'm going to see is the things that I could lose and what could go wrong.
That is so interesting. And I'm sure everyone or anyone that's listening to this can relate to a lot of these topics about how confidence can help you in work or in performance as a musician. And, you're clearly a very confident person now, but were you always confident? Kind of taking it back in time a little bit. This is a podcast called Notes from School. So when you were at school, were you a confident person? Do you have any teachers that built you up, or did you have any teachers that kind of made you feel less confident about yourself? Is there a journey in your confidence?
Oh, yeah, what a question. And I'd say we're getting deep, aren't we? And even continues to today, just to be clear, I actually think school, unfortunately for me, wasn't a great place in terms of my confidence. It probably did quite a bit of damage, just in the sense that I always felt like a bit of the, I don't know, black sheep. I was very much that kind of typical chubby, geeky. I mean, I've still got my -5 glasses going on here.
I'm -5 as well.
But I loved to learn, and I was interested in that. And yes, I found a lot of solace in music at school. I played the saxophone. I sang in choirs, and musical theatre was a place where I was able to express emotions and be myself, because I found other people that also loved to do that.
Yeah, I had exactly the same thing. I think, well, I went to an all boys school in secondary school, and being into music and classical music, well, classical music, especially in singing in choirs, was definitely not a cool thing to be. So I kind of found my
Yeah.
tribe outside of school. And in kind of when I was about 16, 17, I ended up doing things like the National Youth Choir and meeting other people. I was like, oh, so you are out there somewhere.
You exist.
Yeah, you
Yay.
exist,
Like,
and
I'm
you're
not
people that I
alone.
can connect to on a different level. And uh,
Mm.
a lot of people will find their tribe eventually. And if you haven't found your tribe yet, I'm sure they will be out there somewhere. Musical theatre is an amazing one as well. It's such an
Mm.
uplifting community.
But I think
Um,
also, I would say as well, like one of the things, and the reason why music is so powerful is to get really deep here, but like it makes you feel like you're not alone.
yeah,
And I think so much about what makes us feel great as human beings at work, at home, in life, is that we feel like someone else understands us.
yeah,
And so coming back to whether that's music and the emotional side of things, listening to a song where someone is talking about the feelings that you also have. If you're in an environment where you don't hear people talking about these things and you have no idea that who you are is okay or how you feel is normal and okay in the world, music can be such an incredible way of going, oh, okay, I'm not on my own. Like there is someone else who is thinking this and feeling this. So I think that's why also it's such an important thing in the work that I do and obviously for the work that you do, particularly at school.
yeah. I really love that, and I've actually, one of the things I have enjoyed the most from doing this show that I've been touring around is getting people into a room and having that sense of community, even if it's just for one night. And I've actually had quite in a previous podcast I was talking about going to shows alone. And I kind of did a shout out. I was like, how many of you go and see shows on your own? And so many people actually replied saying, yes, I love seeing shows on my own. I love going to things on my own. And it's been nice chatting to people at the end of shows, and some of whom have come on their own and said, do you know what? I just wanted to come along to this, and it felt great just being in a room full of other people. You haven't met any of them before, but for that one evening, you are together and you've built something. And I guess in the age of kind of being digitally disconnected, and obviously coming out of the back of lockdowns and COVID and all that stuff, we're not as connected anymore as we used to be. So I think music and community is such an important way of building that back up, and the positive effect on your mental health is so good. Yeah. Now, talking of singing and schools, did you sing at school? Do you have any memories of singing at school?
Yes, the classic assembly, as with most people in the UK. But yeah, a lot of singing. I had actually a very incredibly inspirational music teacher when I was younger. Shout out to Peter Hatch, wherever he is and what he's
Peter
doing.
Hatch. Shout out.
Mr. Hatch. It's so weird, isn't it, when you talk about your teachers and their first name? I'm like, what?
But we remember them. We remember our teachers. Most people
oh my goodness,
listening to this will think, oh, who was my music teacher? And you remember their name.
100%. Like, just so inspiring. That he made such an effort to find really cool arrangements of pop songs for choir. There is nothing like an a cappella "Hit Me Baby One More Time" to get the spirit lifted.
I need to add that into my show. Ella, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I've just got one quick fire question. Talking of singing at school, what was your favourite school song? Do you have a favourite?
Yes, absolutely was "Autumn Days" when the grass is green and the silk inside the chestnut shell.
What a song. The best song ever written about planes refueling in midair. We need more of those. That is a great banger, and I just want to wrap it up by saying thank you so much for chatting. It's been so interesting, and hopefully people that are listening to this have had some thoughts of their own about self-confidence. Maybe you can try making a playlist for different moods and things. Do you have any final recommendations for people that are listening to help with their self-confidence?
Oh my goodness. Start with one tune. Find one tune that makes you feel absolutely fantastic. And from then on, Spotify is your best friend, and or other music platforms where they give you recommendations, because just start to be curious, work out what makes you feel good, and then start building yourself a little collection from there.
Perfect. And also, if you're not feeling self-confident on a particular day, then you can also embrace the fact that it's also okay to not be
oh my goodness
100% of the time. And
everyone needs a cry song. Like, you also need the song that you need to be like, for this 3.5 minutes I am going to weep and I'm going to feel
a cry song.
I mean, there are a few. There is a playlist.
There's a
That
whole
really.
playlist.
There's a playlist that gets me going.
Nice.
It's important. You've got to let those emotions out. So yes, your hype song and your weeping song, everyone. Critical life
Absolutely.
tool.
There we go. I think that's the best way to end it. Ella Reiter, thank you so much for coming on Notes from School podcast. Wow, there we go. What a chat. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and apologies for spending a bit of time nerdily diving into the James Bay song that Ella recommended. I think we definitely need the James Bay Partridge collaboration. Apologies. Yeah, we do need that at some point. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. Hopefully there are a few takeaways for you to implement in your professional life, in your personal life, because self-confidence, as we know, is so important. So last week we talked about self-confidence for young singers. This week we talked about self-confidence in your adult life. And I'm going to take it right back now. So even before the days that you could start joining a choir when you're about 6 or 7, the early starts of your singing life, you might have songs that really stick with you. And I'm going to sing one today, which is a tune that a lot of us know from maybe even nursery days, called I Can Sing a Rainbow. And this song comes from another slightly obscure spiral-bound book. This one's called Apuskidoo, or Apuskidoo, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Apuskidoo. This is a green book. We've got fishes swimming. And song number 5 is called Sing a Rainbow. A lot of us will know this tune. It's actually written by someone called Arthur Hamilton, and it's actually from a film, 1955 film, called Pete Kelly's Blues, where it was sung by Peggy Lee. That film also had Ella Fitzgerald in it, so it had kind of a jazzy vibe. Now, Peggy Lee's performing this song in the movie, and it's a bit of a jazzy tune, but it kind of got more widely known by a later recording by a group called the Dells, and then it's been used in lots of children's songbooks. I'm sure most of us sang this at school growing up. However, I've got a bone to pick with this song, because we all know this song is about a rainbow and learning the colours of the rainbow, but it doesn't match the order that we all know. Richard of York gave battle in vain, obviously, because here we've got red, yellow, pink, green, purple, orange, blue. That is not the right order, everybody. Fake news. Misinformation started early. Now, I think it's time for a bit of a sing-along after such a great chat. So if you remember this song from school, let's give it a go. This is I Can Sing a Rainbow. And maybe if you've got children, you can sing this to them later on. Okay, so here we go. This is I Can Sing a Rainbow, and we're going to start off with red and yellow and pink and green. It goes like this. Here we go. And red and yellow and pink and green, purple and orange and blue. I can sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow too. Here's the verse. Listen with your eyes, listen with your eyes, and sing everything you see. You can sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow, sing along with me. Here we go. Red and yellow and pink and green, purple and orange and blue. Now we can sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow, sing a rainbow too. Oh, beautiful stuff. I Can Sing a Rainbow. It's a tune that will take a lot of us back to our young childhood days. Or if you have children now, they might sing it when they're at school or in nursery. I felt like that was quite a nice kind of rounding off of the life experiences of singing, whether you are in the youth choir, whether you are using music as a hype song in your adult life to improve your self-confidence, or just getting started on your musical journey as a child. That was I Can Sing a Rainbow. And after all of that, thank you once again for joining me in the Assembly Hall for this episode of Notes from School. I really hope it just gives you a little bit of positivity and joy, hopefully, in a world right now where we kind of need a bit of that. There's a lot of bleak stuff happening, but just spending about half an hour to 45 minutes of your day just listening to something about how music can lift you up and and improve your life in some way. I hope that's been good for you guys, and I'll keep doing this podcast if because, it makes me happy as well. So it is now the end of the assembly today, very sadly. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you want to get in touch, as I mentioned earlier, I have an email address, which is notesfromschoolpodcast@gmail.com. You can send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. And if you've enjoyed this, please feel free to share it, subscribe, follow, or leave a review or a comment on Spotify, because you can comment under the episode. So it's now time to say goodbye. Keep on smiling, keep singing, and I'll see you again for our assembly next Wednesday. Class dismissed.